as you can see. And we're just going to kind of carry on from the bloggers I'd like to introduce very quickly. Well, actually, no, Roy, let's start with you. No, let's not start with you. He's very nervous. We're not going to start with Roy. Oh, nice. Cash, could you give us a quick intro of who you are and your connection to Meet South Africa?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cash, with a K, not with a C, so don't get the wrong ideas after. Sorry to disappoint you guys. So I run a blog called The Budget Traveler, which is all about how to inspire people how to travel in style on a budget. And I've been doing it for 5 years, and I'm proud to call it my full-time day job now. And I'm part of a wonderful group of very talented bloggers called iAmbassador, which represents over 50 bloggers from over 20 countries from all over the world. And we're very proud to be working with South African Tourism Board on the Meet South Africa campaign. And I had the privilege, as you saw in the video earlier, I was as part of the Meet South Africa campaign in May and had an amazing experience. And here I'm back again 2-3 months later, and very happy and proud and excited to be here again.
Gareth? My name is Gareth Bond. I was on the stage before lunch. I don't dance, I don't sing, and I don't do selfies, unless it's on Facebook. Yeah, I was involved with South Africa, just sort of chatting, getting things going, working closely with Roy and Mobile Media Mob and South Africa just to get the connections going, drive the intermeets, just communities around.
Your turn, Roy. You can do it.
My name is Roy. My handle's Roy Wrench, W-R-E-N-T-H. I've been an Instagrammer for about 3 years. Got 145,000 followers. Run a business called Mobile Media Mob. We create content for social, and we also manage and do Instagram activations with Instagram influencers. Yeah.
Okay, so what we decided was there's so many questions around bloggers and how they work with destination marketing organizations, and how do we choose bloggers, how do you work with them, what kind of things do they need in order to give you the best kind of return, how do you engage them, do you pay for content, do you pay for their time? All these questions have been raised on numerous different occasions, and so I thought if we can get these guys on the floor talking about it and going through the stuff from a first-hand point of view, asking some questions, getting people to understand what those challenges are and how best we can deal with them, then we'll be able to give you guys the opportunity to be able to move on and close yet another chapter. So that's really what the panel discussion is all about for today. I think let's start with Cash. What's the biggest challenge that you have when working with ERs or with DMOs?
I think the biggest challenge is obviously as a travel blogger, it's a relatively young profession. I've been doing this full time for 2 years, and the connotation that people often have with blogging is, you mentioned the word blogger. I can't remember, there's a movie with Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, and the husband of Julia Roberts was a loser who supposedly spent all his time blogging when he was watching porn all day. And that's not what bloggers are like.
So glad to clear that up for us.
Yeah, just to get that clear, let's get it all out in the open. That's what this session's all about. So I did this professionally, but I worked in a background in publishing for 8 years before I was a blogger. So I had my own magazine. I wrote for newspapers, magazines, and I did this professionally. And then I saw the transition from print to online. And more people were shifting online and social media to find information about planning their travels. So it's still a recent development, and I find that a lot of PR companies and DMOs are still coming to terms with understanding how social media can help their business. So my prime challenge as a blogger is to come to conferences like this and meet people here, network, and try and explain what I do and how I can help them individually, because each and every business in this room is very unique and different, and travel is a very unique business because we all travel in different ways. So that's my main challenge.
Okay, so a key distinction in the way that we look at bloggers and journalists and PRs, and we look at it and we're asking ourselves, how do we actually define what we're talking about from a digital influencer point of view? Digital influencers to us are more important because of the fact that it's not just limited to one particular type of person that only does one particular type of content generation or content sharing. And you would have heard Gareth talking about it earlier when he said he's not a travel blogger. So it's important for you to understand that when you're engaging these people, that you actually get them in to do the job that they're really good at. You don't want you don't want to be in a situation where you're giving someone a hammer to fix every problem that they have. You know, you put the right tools in the people's hands to get the job done. Sorry, people are continuing to phone me. Sorry. So that's a key distinction. I think, Roy, tell us a little bit about the kind of activations you guys get to do and why it is that there's this uptake now in terms of people seeing the value of the content that you produce and why they're asking for it and what kind of value they're seeing and where the discoveries are that they're making.
We mostly work with Instagram influencers, not so much Twitter influencers or bloggers. And we mostly seed content, which is maybe a little bit different to an influencer.
Tell us what seeding content means.
So basically just seeding a message, but from the seeder's kind of opinion, or so not like a constructed message. So basically just putting out a message about the brand, but from the seeder's opinion. Yeah.
All right, so for those of you, we took the Reconsider ad. How many saw our new ad? Saw the new ad? Part of the reason why that ad did so well is because we seeded that ad. We actually took that ad, gave it to some of the bloggers that we had relationship with. They pushed that ad before we actually started pushing our social media. Sorry, that probably doesn't look good. Good when I say that, the water thing. So, because we had built the Meet South Africa platform and there were people in that platform, it's easy for us to drop good content into that ecosystem and give them the opportunity then to retweet and to reshare and to comment and to post. And that's critical. It would not have worked if we didn't have the two leading that Reconsider ad online. So that's an important thing. And remember also that when you're working with different people, don't expect the same thing to work across different channels. We heard there's a very clear distinction between an iGrammer and someone who uses Twitter. People sometimes only exclusively use Facebook. And then you've got people who are using blogs. And that's different to what we've had in the past where people were PRs or journalists and all they wrote was web content that goes onto a website somewhere. So I want to ask some questions to you, the audience, very quickly. What is it that you read on a daily basis from an online perspective? Are you paying attention to emails first and foremost, because obviously that's the business communication channel of choice? When you are opening up your browser, what do you typically do? You can just shout it out. Okay. Facebook, what else? Instagram, yes.
Google Plus.
Okay, and we make the distinction also between whether you're using your handheld device to actually go through that feed or not, right? Okay, and do you understand how different those user behaviors are for you as a person? No, not so much. Yes, I'm seeing this as well. What does that mean? Okay, so we've got to remember that the way that people consume our content, we have to be mindful of it. We have to pay attention to what time of day we post. We have to pay attention to which days we're going to get more engagement. We need to make sure that when we actually are posting, we're posting time specific for our audience. If I'm posting when my audience is asleep, they're not going to scroll all the way down their feed and expect to find my amazing, remarkable, beautiful content. Pay attention to the audience that you want to be able to reach. When is the best time for you to reach them? Which channel do they engage with most? And pay attention to things like if you're going to be sharing an image, embed it into your tweet. Don't just send it across from Instagram where you just get the ugly little shortened URL. These are things that you need to pay attention to in terms of making your content look good and work well in the platform that it actually needs to be published in. Cash, you've spent a lot of time, not only from a travel point of view, but also from the perspective of having to kind of go and take a brief from a DMO. When do the briefs work? When don't they work?
They work when you're having a two-way conversation. Because when I approach a DMO, I spend a lot of time trying to understand what their needs are. We understand that there is a certain aim for the campaign, so it may be that the campaign is focusing on key destinations for the United Kingdom and Germany. So you approach bloggers who work in these kind of key markets, and there's key messages that you need to get across. So I, for example, cover the kind of budget, culture, adventure market, and Velvet Escape, for example, covers luxury and food. So I understand that those are your key needs, and we try and build in those messages when we're working with the destination, visiting the destination. But at the same time, what we also try and educate the DMOs and the tour operators and the hotels and hostels is that we try and tell them what our needs are and what the needs of my readers are. I spend a lot of time researching those needs of what my readers want, and the hours I spend on social media is one great tool, listening tool for understanding what travelers are looking for. And the great thing about working with bloggers and Instagrammers and people who are on all these different social platforms is that they're very much on trend, and they're in real time learning what travelers are looking for. So it's great for working with these bloggers and influencers because they can relay the data of what travelers are looking for in real time, so you guys can meet those needs of the travelers.
Okay, so now for the two Instagrammers. When someone's got money in their pocket and they say, I want you to take my money and make me famous, and they've got the most stupid idea that you've ever come across, how do you handle that?
Tell them that they need help. I think it's like Cash said, like it has to be a two-way conversation. What I traditionally will do is I'll go back to them already with the campaign or a few concepts that actually extend their campaign past what they initially came up with. So the beauty about Instagram is it actually forces you to think out the box because you don't have your traditional regrams, or the content isn't as shareable, say like on Twitter or Facebook. Like the virality of it is very limited. So combining a unique concept with partnering with other Instagrammers or something like that can be something that could be really powerful to firstly blow their minds, show them that their idea is actually very limited, and then extending it past that and giving them a solution. So this is actually a problem, here's how we can fix it.
So Roy, when we look at taking the sting out of failure, tell us what's the worst crisis that you've had to deal with in the middle of a campaign or in the middle of some kind of activation? Because it's important that the audience knows that sometimes things do go wrong, and how do you kind of deal with that, and how do you bring things back into line? You need to raise the mic.
Sorry. Actually, to be honest, I haven't had too many crises. We try to avoid them, obviously. I think it comes back to what Cash was saying, is understanding the client's needs. If you understand the client's needs and understand the market you're dealing with.
Okay, so it sounds like you plan a lot of stuff up front. What does a typical plan look like? What do you pay attention to before you actually start the whole act?
Scheduled posts, understanding like when you should be posting, like day or night, or when your market is awake. Sorry, getting blank.
Let's take one or two questions quickly. Shout out those of you who have done anything from a digital influencing point of view. Hands up. No. Yes. What worked? What didn't work? Val, what worked?
What didn't necessarily work for us is where we tried to do sort of Robert Kontiki tour on steroids, where we get travelers into Cape Town for say a week, and we try and jam-pack their itinerary with as much stuff as possible, and give everybody the same experience. get everyone to do the same experiences. Because, you know, what you guys are saying, it works best when there's a conversation.
We're really allowing the conversation to happen. And I think what we're finding works better is if we slow down and actually give bloggers the time and space to discover the destination for itself. I mean, we've all been talking about the fact that one of the most important things about social media is authenticity. And authenticity only really comes when there is discovery. So actually sometimes it means that as much as a destination marketing organization, we want people to have the most perfect trip and we want to, you know, craft it all for them. Actually, when the real magic happens is when we allow people to go and discover it for themselves. And sometimes things might go wrong, and sometimes it's actually in the stuff that goes wrong that the real authenticity comes from.
Okay, that's valuable. Thanks. One of the things that we learned also on the whole thing of how do you plan to not completely exhaust your influences that they have, you know, very diluted influence that they can apply during the trip. What are the biggest mistakes that people are making when it comes to trying to push things in a particular way and not understanding how things work optimally? And is that something that we could share? If there were 2 or 3 key things that you could tell the audience today to avoid that kind of like, you know, veering off, continuing onto the wrong tracks, what would that be?
I think the key watchword that Belma, is trust. And I think that's the important thing when you're approaching. Obviously, you have to do a bit of groundwork and research when approaching a blogger or an Instagrammer. Is check their feed, check how they interact with their followers, see obviously the quality of their content, read their blogs, take the time and effort because it really pays off. But then once you think you found the right person, then obviously you have to put the trust of your brand and your product in their hands, and you have to let them go off and do their magic. And that's the key problem that I find is that some chosen boards and brands, they find it very difficult to surrender their, for example, what some bloggers often do, they often hijack the Instagram feed of a tourism board, and that can lead to some great inspirational content, but at the same time it can go wrong as it happened in, I think it was in Sweden, isn't it? So I think trust is the one thing I can think of.
I think like conversation is quite a big thing. Instagrammers there's lots of different kinds of them. Like the most popular Instagrammer in say Japan will be totally different from the most popular Instagrammer in Sweden, for example. So you've got to attune their itineraries or their experiences to what they like to share. I try and make myself quite dynamic. A lot of guys do that, but some people will only post photos about, say, landscapes, for example. There's a guy from what's his name? From Stockholm, and he posts landscapes. That's his thing. Like, so all his itineraries involve seeing beautiful landscapes. So I think the main problem is that, like I mentioned in my presentation, is that Instagrammers aren't travel bloggers. You've got to sort of almost curate being the keyword is curate itineraries to the Instagrammer. So I love eating. I've got a food account that's dedicated purely to what I eat, called Gareth Von Eats, if you want to go and Google a bit. But I'll use that purely for what I have at dinners and lunches. And so that mixed up with several of my other accounts just creates that entire experience that gets shared across platforms. So, and that's the sort of conversation you need to have. Like, what do you like to eat? What do you like to do? Do you want to jump out of a plane? Do you want to go rhino hunting? Do you want to see wildlife? So it's rhino hunting. I did not say that.
I think the answer is no.
Rhino viewing. I'm Asian. That's an Asian joke. Take that out of the video. But it's just that always remember that you can't copy and paste, and it's across the board with influencers in general. You can't copy and paste an experience. You need to innovate with each and every itinerary.
I think going back to Gareth's talk is an opportunity. Give from an Instagrammer's perspective, give the Instagrammer opportunity to take photos, and then I think also give them guidelines. A lot of the time, the blogger or the influencer doesn't know like how far they can go with a certain subject. If you give them guidelines, basic guidelines, it helps guide them to what they need to talk about.
Okay, so we've spoken about choosing the blogger and doing research, seeing what they do, how they engage with their audience, getting an understanding of their audience, understanding the themes. Let's talk about the value exchange. How does that work? What do we pay for and what do we get when we work with bloggers and digital influencers?
So I, for example, have a day rate. I charge 400 euros a day for working with a client or a brand or for that, what I offer is obviously my time. I'm based in Portugal, so I don't live in South Africa. So I travel long distances to go and review hostels and hotels. So it's a huge, considerable effort of time invested. And obviously, I promote the client on my social platforms, which I've spent many years trying to build up and create. And obviously, I write about them on my blogs. And I see it also not just about a one-off payment and a transaction. I see it as a beginning of a relationship because I'm very passionate about the people I work with and the destinations I work with. And I like to think that once you visited a destination and you've had good memories, that you will continue to talk about the destination for many, many years to come. So in many ways, when you find a really good blogger or an Instagrammer to work and represent your company, you're actually finding an ambassador for your business, and that's the way to approach it when having that conversation is have a long-term perspective and don't just think, what can you deliver for me today? Think of this as a long-term relationship which you both are trying to help each other in many ways and not just as a financial transaction.
Well, I'm quite a dynamic sort of creative, or I'd like to believe so, but I sort of integrate things according to line items, if that makes sense. I'll usually day rates, and I'll give the day rates and say like, okay, this will cost X amount per day, and then I'll tune that to basically like what the deliverables are per day. So if I need to cross-share that to all my social platforms, if I need to deliver, say, like a 1-minute highlight of the day, or if I need to also share, say, like DSLR photos on my blog as an extension of Instagram. So that's the one option. And then if it's like on an event or a once-off, then I'll charge per post. And then I'll also offer a consultation fee where I'll consult on the campaign and sort of bring others in and bring other Instagrammers in and integrate them into the campaign if that's what's required. So that's sort of how I structure it. So it's the creative inputs, the skills, and then also the reach, basically.
I think South Africa is quite new to the service. There aren't too many bloggers and there's not a lot of Instagrammers really. So the market becomes saturated very quickly. There's a lot of people that want access to per post for Instagramming. We also, my business was the first to charge for Instagrammers, so we're trying to understand the market and what people are willing to pay. And obviously, there's big businesses that are willing to pay a lot, and so it's about understanding, the exchange and what's needed.
Okay, so to summarize then, you sit down with the guy, expectations are, you work from a brief, the brief is informed by some kind of plan, the plan then indicates what kind of effort is required, you put costings available for those types of things, and everything's negotiable. And then at the end of the day, when you've now done the hosting, when you've done the activity, you've written the blogs, where does ownership lie in terms of the content? Understanding, of course, that You guys have your own platforms and you've got your own audiences that you pay attention to. How do I, as South African tourism, who now wants to get this Meet South Africa stuff working for me, how do we do that value exchange in terms of the actual content?
So, for example, I came in May, and I'm about to embark on a 7-day trip of the garden route, which will be part of the Meet South Africa campaign. So I'll be producing a whole bunch of content from the May campaign I've got and from this trip. And for me, at the end of the day, I'm here to promote the destination. So as many ways possible, if you want to share that content with your audiences, you want to take my posts and create an ebook and saying, this was a 7-day itinerary of the garden route, and you want to share it and curate it on your Facebook platforms and on your digital websites, brilliant. I'm all for encouraging it, and I think the key thing that anybody would ask for is as long as you give the credit to say that this was created by the Village Traveller, I'm happy with that. And photographs are also, as long as I'm credited, I'm happy for that to be done. And often I find tourism boards now translating all the content into the key languages, and that way you can retrieve a huge reach from a very small campaign.
I think it's a bit different with images, and I think there's a fine line with that. I think if you're hired to do a job socially, I think sharing it socially is more fun. And I think as soon as the images get used, maybe above the line, it's a different conversation. So, you know, branded billboards or anything like that. So, yeah,
again, it's a conversation that
yeah, and I think it's also very new to this industry. So we're still trying to figure that out. Both sides.
I think it involves licensing that content if it's outside of that specific campaign. I work with international brand where they'll license an image for their Instagram account, for example. So if it's part of, say, like Meet South Africa, then like I said, I'm happy to have that reused and reshared on digital, but as soon as it's going to be used for, say, like print or television or something like that, then it needs to be licensed because it's costing media advantage.
Okay, so in closing, I want you each to think about the best campaign and why. I'll come back to you. I'm going to do a quick wrap up. First thing, understand the audience, understand the topic, understand what's important to them. That's the audience you want to reach. Get to know them if you want your messaging to resonate. The second thing is plan it. Plan everything about it. Get it onto paper. Communicate it extensively with the bloggers that you choose to engage with or the digital influencers you choose to engage with. Expectations need to be discussed and agreed to up front. Costs, ownership. Make sure you include that in the actual conversation because you don't want to be in a position where you get great content that you can't get to because of some misunderstanding around licensing or ownership that wasn't covered. And the final thing, make sure that when you do choose the bloggers, you choose the bloggers for a longer period of time than just the one campaign that you're working on. Remembering that the content, once it's there, is going to live there for a long time, and you want to be able to make sure you can maximize the value of that content over the life cycle. Finally, thank you so much to these guys. They're going to leave us now with their biggest and best campaign that they've seen so far that you guys can go and have a look at so we can all learn from this. Thanks, gentlemen. Say your thank yous and tell us what the best campaign
is. There was a campaign in the States, I think it was with Lexus. They got a whole bunch of Instagrammers together, and they made like a stop motion photos on the track. They got the Instagrammers to stand in certain spots and take photos, and created a TV advert out of that. I think so these photos and obviously get the community together to do that. Pretty cool.
I've got two that I always sort of mention. The one is Oreo's campaign, where they launched. Well, one of the first campaigns they did on their Oreo account was they created a hashtag or asked people to submit images, and what they did is they created those things out of Oreos. It's really cool. Go look it up. I usually actually show it, but you had like little dogs made out of Oreo biscuits, and you had little like houses and stuff, man. And it was really cool because it's really good interaction. It's dynamic and it's hilarious, like to see stuff made about warriors. And then the other one is it's more of like a travel, sort of transitioning between travel and brand. So Mercedes did a campaign in New York where they launched one of their new cars and they gave each of the top Instagrammers in New York that car for a week. And they got to road trip with it. They got to go everywhere and go to all their favorite locations. And then at the end of that campaign, the person with the most accumulated likes on those photos that they posted got to keep the car, which is pretty flipping awesome.
The campaign that I've personally been involved in that William knows well, it's called Blogville, and it's been 3 years running, and the whole concept is in a place called Emilia Romagna in Italy. And what we did was we created an apartment that bloggers from all over the world could come and visit Bologna and explore the whole region, staying in the apartment from between 2 days to 2 weeks. The whole idea was to give bloggers the freedom to go and explore the country. They were all armed with internet devices, and they went off and traveled and saw the region. And it's been a huge success, and got lots of mentions in international press and social media channels, and it's just entered its third year, and today it's launching in Milan, and the whole ambition of the whole project is to take the whole concept of Blogville all the way to all over the world. So, yeah.
Thanks very much, audience. Use the hashtag. If you've got any questions, like we've already seen people, well, it wasn't a cheap shot, it was a good, let's keep the session going. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep the conversation going and don't shoot rhinos. So as we move ahead towards our next coffee break, the seminar section will be after our coffee break this afternoon at 3:45. We want to run through some local solutions now. So looking at how this actually translates into business and the process that we go through to achieve that. So you have several speakers in quick succession over these next 2 sessions. I will, you may know, is the author of the book, The Tourism Coach. He's going to be talking about tourism businesses here in South Africa, experiences in travel. But then we're moving ahead with some actual local solutions for social, for booking, and for sales, with a series of short presentations. But to get us started, please welcome to the stage the author of The Tourism Coach, Mr. Sean Bennett.
You've got to get into that stuff, guys. It's amazing. We had Gareth in Knysna over the Oyster Festival, and absolutely amazing the coverage that was generated. And surprisingly, Gareth, all of the rhinos are still there, so we're doing well with it. Greetings from Knysna. Great to be with you guys today. Happy Tourism Month, by the way. Hope it's your best tourism month ever. What I'm going to be looking at, I found the question yesterday quite interesting, of you saying, how do you break through the clutter? How do you get through everything that's happening out there in the social world? And I think it would be useful to almost have a backward step and have a look at the stuff that goes behind creating an experience that is going to work out there and stand out. So that's very much the sort of thing that I'm going to be looking at, the backstory behind it. You've got a lot of power today as well. I have taken 2.5 hours and given you a bit of a taste of it today. And if you think it's all right, the next year of my life is going to be spent going around the country and training small entrepreneurs in tourism. It's something I'm really passionate about. So towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to ask you how you feel. Also, I saw it earlier on today, today is the first day without Joan Rivers in our life, which is a bit of a shame. She was totally irreverent, politically incorrect, so a lot of what I'm going to do today might just touch on that as well as a bit of a tribute. And maybe we can start off, I don't know where Gareth's gone, but have a bit of fun with him and see if you guys are with me and awake after lunch. I was not originally going to be amongst the speakers for this, this Congress, for the summit. And William phoned Gareth and said, hey Gareth, it's tourism month, you know, the minister's going to be there, you've got to be politically correct. And Gareth had a look at his speakers list, and he had Vusi covering the one side, and then said, look, I don't have a physically disadvantaged guy. So please welcome your token one-armed speaker for today. Thank you. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to have a look at some big terms here. And I am going to be politically incorrect. William started off by saying we do it every year and we don't always get it right. We don't get moving on it. So have a look at those trends. It's something we're going to talk about a lot. And then change. And maybe you can do something for me quickly. Those of you who've got a bit of paper in front of you and a pen, try this. Write down quickly in 15 seconds for me. The one-armed guy is funny with your writing hand. Okay? The one-armed guy is funny. For those of you perfectionists and not good at English, one-armed is hyphenated. Okay? Stick your hands up if you finished. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to do something that I can't do, and that's switch hands with a pen. Okay? Put it in your other hand, and now below where you wrote, write exactly the same thing with your non-writing hand. I've only got 15 seconds, guys, so quickly. With your wrong hands, okay? Put your hand up when you've finished. No. Come on, guys. Okay, how did that feel?
Weird.
Weird, a little scary, a little pressured. Okay, that's what change is all about. And that is probably why we struggle with change. And this Congress is all about that, the summit. You might have seen this before, looking at aware and also at action. And starting off where I think a lot of your bosses, or you think your bosses might be, you don't know that you don't know it. Okay, all the best stuff. Then we go on to becoming aware of something but not taking any action. And then the third place is where we start doing something about it. So we're aware of it and we're taking action. And that's a danger spot. That's where most of us drop out of things. Because it becomes hard, it's a schlep, and it just doesn't seem to be making a difference. But then eventually, like driving a car, it becomes habit, and that's unaware action. And that really is one of the things that you've got to aim for, you and your staff as you move along. I love Seth Golden. Earlier on, someone mentioned him. Wonderful blogs and books and that type of thing. And that's what he says. Marketing used to be what you say, and now marketing is what you do, what you make, what you act, or how you act, the choices you make when you're sure no one's looking. So it has all changed, and in fact, let me go back to that. That's a great book. His book was called All Marketers Are Liars, and there's an update to that, which is All Marketers Tell Stories. Now, here we get on to the sort of slightly sensitive stuff, and I've tried to take a situation in a country and look at a franchise and studied McDonald's quite closely. And if you look above, you'll see what they do at a national level. They create the brand, they try and look for extra value and so on. They have their assistant coaches, the regional guys, and then at the bottom you've got the franchisees, who effectively are the players. And what McDonald's do and why they succeed is they say, you guys have to be 100% sales focused, okay? Forget about all the other stuff. Concentrate on sales, on the customer experience, and we want you, although you're in competition with each other, we want there to be a oneness. And you might start thinking and wondering whether we achieve that in tourism. Now, our opposition have decided that that's quite a smart thing, that the businesses at the bottom level, especially in this new environment we're in, will decide whether we succeed or fail. So if you have a look at that, you've got Australia, Ireland, and other countries there. Canada is a big one, giving their businesses instructions and how-to guides on how to go about getting this all right. My very distinct feeling is that we are almost heading for a bit of a Kodak moment. Once again, William said that. And it's not because of you guys, because you're good. The fact that you're here taking time out of your businesses and paying means that you're at the front end of the line. But there's quite a lot of the team that isn't making it. And if you look at that Kodak picture there, you'll notice the blue line at the bottom. Where that starts is where Kodak invented the digital camera. They were the first to invent the digital camera. You'll then see a nice little rise. During that time, they invented LED and megapixels and that type of thing, but they continued to sell film. They stopped listening to the clients and looking for what was happening, trends-wise in the market, and they carried on selling film. And eventually their competitors got involved, and you can see what happened to Kodak. So I'm going to talk a lot about things that we should be doing, and that's part of that backstory. So let's have a look at those quickly. The first one's obvious. That's what we hear about today. The second one is what has changed, that the experience value is now the primary driver of value in tourism. The way people experience something, not just the product. So being the tourism coach, in case you haven't got it fully as yet, let me give you a bit of an example of cricket. In the 70s, Test cricket was going along very nicely, and guys are going, oh, cricket is good. We don't really need a change. We're not too fussed about what TV is doing. Until a guy came along and said, I want broadcast rights for Australian cricket. And they said no. And he said, well, in that case, I'm going to upstage you. Kerry Packer, many of you might remember that. And the whole game changed. There was a trend, and the game changed totally. What he did was, the first year, he bought the best players, and he brought them along, had them playing super tests against each other. Didn't really work. He got 250 people in the first year, the biggest turnout for the games. But in year 2, he carried on innovating, and he introduced day-night cricket and 50-over cricket. And that changed the world of cricket forever, to where you now have the ICC doing this type of thing, and it's continued to evolve. And even those of you who don't enjoy cricket will know the IPL, where they've gone with absolutely everything that the market is looking for. They've listened and they've provided. And they've added into that the trends for new markets, the younger attendees, and brought on great sponsors. If you have Red Bull involved in your event, you know you're going to attract a certain market. So here's a video just to show you the contrast, and it's the type of contrast I believe we're going through. So check this out. They're both international games. One is New Zealand playing Test cricket, and the other one is, well, you'll see what it is. Oh, this looks like it. This looks like it.
100 runs.
Oh, Rocco!
102 not out. Of 154 deliveries. 188 minutes at the crease.
What do you think, John?
Ross Taylor. 102 not out. New Zealand 319 goodbye.
Desire for the
It could be a game changer for RCB Victoria. That ball was delivered at 146 Ks, and now look at the end result. Boom!
So that's the type of thing that's happened in cricket, and I really believe that that is what's happening in tourism as well. What you'll notice with the cricket players is that while these trends are happening, the biggest thing that is happening behind the scenes is they're innovating and practicing and innovating and practicing and practicing. So, and that really is where it comes back down to us. So you have on the left-hand side, Jacques Kallis, the best ever all-rounder in Test cricket in the world. No one has ever been as good as Jacques Kallis. He stopped playing Test cricket to focus on next year's World Cup, but just couldn't get there to the place where he believed he was good enough. And that really is the lesson that we need to take out of these types of sports. Are the other 80% of people out there, our products, are they doing well enough? And are they delivering what people are looking for? So if you look at that diagram we had earlier on, the flow down of information, and here it gets a bit controversial, but I think it's real. Where our franchisees should be getting all of the information and be the focus, some of our information isn't drifting down to them efficiently. So all of the good work that William and the team and others are doing is being watered down, especially in the towns of our country. So instead of being thriving guys, they're in survival mode. They're operations focused instead of sales focused. They are not looking at the customer experience, and they're very insulated, silo-like. You know anyone like that, guys? You really, really are just making it from day to day. This is one of them. It's a beautiful hotel in Riversdale, down the garden route. Beautiful spot. The owner and her husband spent 6 years renovating it, taking all the white paint off those pieces of furnishings and wood and that. He died, and she's now sitting with the hotel, and she doesn't even have a website. And she doesn't know where to start, and she's got this major investment. So when I saw that and a couple of others, I thought, let's do a bit of a survey. So I surveyed the garden route, and these are the figures that came out. Quickly, the 10 top ones. 87% of the businesses spend less than 1 hour a month thinking deeply about their businesses. Operations based. 79% spend less than 3 hours a month on social media. 97% don't brainstorm the guest experience with their staff. 82% don't have a written vision. 98% have never shared their vision with their staff. They've got it sucked away in a drawer somewhere. 99% of the people who have performance manuals have never told the staff why. Why are you doing it? They say what and how, but not why. 60% of them have a negative view of third-party referral sites in case they get bad reviews. 23% encourage guests to rate them on TripAdvisor. 97% don't respond to positive guest comments on TripAdvisor. And only 3% have actively advertised on platforms like TripAdvisor and the others that we've seen here today. So that's the rest of the team. That's the reality out in towns throughout our country. So while William has got us at the top of the log on a national basis, we are way down on the log, and it's really, really important that we get out there and help those guys to become more effective at what they do. So, looking at the experience, quick little run through of that. What is still being done there, tasty meals, lightweight talks and viewpoints, isn't good enough. We've got to go up a level. And experiences is the new battleground. And remember what we said earlier on. The product used to be the product. Now the product is the experience. That's what makes the difference in the marketplace we're going into. And getting back to that question of yours, we don't just want promoters. We want story promoters. We want to get right to the top level of that. So in the middle area, it's still it's becoming even more over-communicated. And what we want to do is get like Apple. We want to touch the very best experiences and put them out there in a special way. So if you're wondering how that happens, let's have a look at a couple of the essentials. It's based on the visitor. It is all about local, and this is the exciting thing for our towns in South Africa, is you're looking for hidden gems. You're looking for local experiences that can be turned into wonderful experiences that have never been used before. It's hands-on. It talks about what life should be like. And bed and breakfasts. I've had this so many times, going to a B&B and they say, yeah, our beds are good, we give a good breakfast. But they don't have any visitor information in their areas or in their bed and breakfast, and they don't tell people enough about what is available. So this is a great idea from one of the overseas brochures. Tell people about a great viewpoint and pack a picnic basket. And have a look at this as a great mission statement. A company called Horizon and Company. Our mission is to design and stage authentic and deeply personal experiences that are carefully choreographed to induce a lifelong memory. That's the space we want to get ourselves into. Have a quick read of that. Imagine if in South Africa we said this is what we want to do, that our most important role is to create conditions in which spontaneity can flourish, or it's in this space that the magic of reinvention occurs. Enjoying life's pleasures is one of those things that we've earned. And we encourage people to go beyond their limits, to slow down, to get lost, to take a risk, to try something new, and we get great joy out of seeing them enjoying it. A couple of case studies quickly, as Damien mentioned. This is a good one from Thailand before we get into the local ones. The product is a Thai massage. The service is a Thai massage as we might have had at a really good beach. The experience is learning to give a Thai massage. So that's where it's been taken now, and Thailand have done really well. You can do Tai Chi, you can do a whole variety of things through the Thai websites. This is one that we've been involved in, and it's a great example. You know Still By down in the Hessequa area. Lovely little spot. Rob Lowe goes holidaying there. The Blombos Cave is there. The Blombos Cave is one of the two oldest caves that have been discovered where ancient man used to live, and they've found habitation. The little stones on the right-hand side are actually called Still By. That's where the name comes from. They're implements that the guys used for various things. Top left is the first industry ever in the world. They're called the Visvijvers. They were built as little dams so that when the tide comes in, the fish swim over the top of the dam. As the tide goes out, the fish are trapped in there, and they can harvest the fish. There's also great fynbos, top right in Varosh, gin made from fynbos, which is absolutely be wonderful. And at the bottom, great people. So what we put together is an experience on that beach where fish harvested from the fish traps are made available to the folk who divide it up into teams. The ladies down at the bottom go and teach them how to do the recipes, but they then go and pick the fynbos themselves for the recipe and cook the fish themselves as well, hands-on. And we bring folks in who talk about the ancient history of the area and the fynbos, but nothing is done as I'm speaking to you at the moment. Everything is done in groups and people having conversations. And that is an idea of how a small town can turn something around and take tourism to its communities. There's another fun idea, something we'll be launching in the next few months. Family experiences. We'll be launching a family experience festival in that area. Taking families, giving them quality time together in little groupings, and then getting together at night and sharing their experiences and having a great family time together. This is in Ireland, and I'll go through it quickly. This is what a bed and breakfast has done in Ireland. He's gone to the locals and created all of those experiences. Very few of them existed before. So instead of going, if you want to come for a weekend, yeah, come and stay with us, have a good time. They've said, here's what you can do. Come through for the weekend. There are great things to do in our destination. And it's not just those. I mean, that's the extent to which they've gone on Prince Edward Island. So once again, going back to what that experience is all about. Connect with your why. Connect with your passion. Make it visitor-inspired. Be absolutely sure that you know the segment that you want to be in and what that segment is all about. Hands-on. There's someone cooking on that beach in Stillby. Authentic. Look for your nowhere else on earth things that you have in your area. Stop competing with the same things. Find out what is really special about your area. And create conversations. It's the biggest thing. Those conversations, you heard early on, people talking about the people they remember. Not particularly the experience, but the people they remember. Remember that we're talking about feelings. We're not talking about things, we're talking about feelings. So you want to be appealing to those feelings the whole time. The emotional connection that people have, and that's going to get you there. And then if you have a good-looking soccer player and his girlfriend, you can get along to that. Thanks, guys. Right, let's get back to that one. So build share moments that are shareable. Remember that you're telling a story throughout the experience, and create moments that are shareable over the social media and get it out there. Quickly for you, a little talk I've done. I was inspired on Mandela Day to do something more. So I took his best characteristics and said, okay, let's link that to the latest in service excellence and have a look at these things. They're really special. First, though, I want you to feel. I want you to feel one of those emotions. Some of those emotions, and remember the greatness of the man that we lost. I brought people together and made it special for us. So the old question, what can one person do? He made a choice. Great book. Delight your customers. You are in charge of whether your staff are going to give great experiences. It's not about what they do or how they do it, it's about why they do it. Have you ever gone to your staff and said, your job is to create promoters for our product? Think about that. Not to make beds, not to do the gardens, to create promoters. He said that every person mattered. So focus on the strengths of your people and encourage them the whole time. He had an awesome way of doing that. Undivided attention. Another awesome, awesome book that you can have a look at for your workplace. written by Marcus Buckingham. They've come up with 12 questions that you can ask to see if you've got a great workplace and if you're creating the environment that your staff are going to thrive in. Tell them about your vision and involve them in it, and innovate. No one would dare go to Queen Elizabeth dressed in anything but a formal suit. And Madiba was awesome. He embraced risk. He took the paths that other people wouldn't take. And I'm going to quickly scroll through the others. Trust, hope, focus, empowering team, and surprising your enemies. So in finishing off, guys, we need to get that other 80% into a coaching academy. We need to make sure that they come and hear the type of thing that you're hearing at this Congress. So what I've done is, you were told earlier on, is I've sat down and I've written a book called The Tourism Coach. It's the first entrepreneur business book for tourism specifically in the world, and it'll hit the shelves in November. It goes through into dashboards and various other things. And if you think it's worthwhile, I'll hit the road and do 60 towns and cities during the course of the next year. Give them talks, work with their local tourism officers and their BEE products. Knowledge, coaching, and motivating, the three really important elements that we need to get to. And I would love to spend so much more time with you and go into those specifics. This is sort of 20% of what I should be giving you. But most importantly, we need to work together today. So if I hit the road, I need to leave a task with you guys. We need to create a tourism revolution in South Africa. And the way we do that is by you passing on, by not having a scarcity mentality and everyone honing in and trying to get more of a little bit, by having an abundance mentality, saying, if we work together, there's going to be loads out there. So if you'll do that for me, I'll hit the road. What do you think? You up to it?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. It's been wonderful being with you guys. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Sean. Okay, so now we want to look at some practicalities for you in the industry and how we move through the process from social through to bookings through to both direct and international sales. So I'm going to invite up three companies who will be with us here to each make a short presentation. If you guys want to join us, we have Peter Fabricius from SpringNest. Pete? Where is Peter? Oh, there, Mike, come on down. We've got mics for you here. You're cool. Your mic's already here. Oh, okay. All right, you do that. Teresa Emmerich from Knightsbridge, and Amanda Owen from Expedia. What we want to look at is that journey and process through from using social media tools to actually driving and converting a booking, and then also being able to open up that booking up to the global market as well. So we'll be seeing how the tools that SpringNest provide for social media in the market can integrate fully with the Knightsbridge booking solution locally, and then how that can open up that same inventory to online travel agencies such as Expedia. I think Peter has a small technical issue. Are you loaded? Can you join us, Peter? These stairs are a killer. There you go. The presentation loaded? Okay. Are we good? Is that a thumb? Yes, we're good. Fantastic. Okay, so Peter will be starting off. So please welcome Peter Fabricius from SpringNest to get us started. Sorry, you've got your own mic. You can stand, you can sit, you can do it. Like probably standing up to it more interesting for people. We'll be followed by Teresa from Knightsbridge and then Amanda from Expedia. All yours, Peter. Please welcome Peter, Teresa, and Amanda. Thanks, guys.
Great. Great to be here. Every year I come here, I'm kind of blown away by what's happening in travel and technology. And it's very inspirational because if you think about the immense opportunities we have to market and travel. But something we need to also acknowledge is that for the SMEs in Africa, this really poses some real kind of challenges. This is normally concerned with, where do I spend my marketing budgets? Which one of these things should I focus on? And how do I actually apply this knowledge that we go through and that we learn? So Springness was very much fueled by that, saying that we need to create a solution that we can put all of that together and make it affordable for businesses. So, all right. So in a nutshell, simply Springness is a website, social, and content management platform that we've created specifically for tourism. All right, so this was a very exciting year for us, quite cool. We've had a big partnership with Knightsbridge. We've grown the company quite a lot. I think we're in about 7 countries in Africa now where clients use it, and we just signed up our first property in Europe as well, in Spain. So our clients basically range from the smallest, I think, is independent tour guide with 1 vehicle to bush camps and lodges with quite a few rooms. What Springness was basically fueled by was this idea that tourism businesses, regardless of your size, should have more than decent websites and decent content, but they should have tools that will empower them to become better marketers. And something that really drove this was this DIY kind of culture that we have in web now. And a few years ago, it was quite hard to inspire business owners, small business owners, to come and say, like, you can update your own kind of content, or you can drive your website. You can do it in a very affordable way. But now that people are, everyone's an online publisher, thanks to social media platforms and basically everyone updating, their own accounts. There's this culture of I can also do this, and it's way easier to enable them to do that. So I think it's a combination of this kind of confidence, but also with technology becoming more friendly. All right, so what I'd like to go through is just a few lessons that we've learned while working on Springness and while pushing it into the market, and maybe lift out a few key things that you can take on when you're planning the next project or working on your marketing strategy. Okay, so firstly, web design has changed quite a lot. I think firstly we saw that the role of the website has changed. If you look at the role of the website in the booking process and people making buy decisions, that's completely different. But also the value perception of websites have changed quite a lot. If you think of all the CMSs out there and the themes and free web builders, getting a decent website up and running is quite effortless. So fun fact, when we started Springness, the idea was to have a web builder specifically for tourism. So if you think Squarespace, but specifically for tourism. Big surprise, that didn't work really well. We as a market didn't want that. Why? Because they were busy running the businesses. They were either checking guests, most of them are picking up clients. So what we then realized was what they want is still guidance and strategy, and showing them what's right, what works, and then giving them the tools to basically run with that. And that's basically the process we went through. Second thing we see is also just web design and actual trends have changed quite a lot. Moving from an era of kind of skeuomorphism and very fancy kind of design to very content-focused design. Everything's very flat. Everything's about inspirational content, like we've seen over the past few days. So just as an industry, it's also changed quite a lot. So when looking at web design, the role and value of a website still, what do we do and what do we look at? So firstly, I'm not going to go into this. I'm not going to talk about the value of video or visuals, but firstly, it's designed to inspire. We've heard this quite a lot now. They're saying if you want to differentiate your product, it really is going to boil down to your content. The era of having actual design elements differentiating your website, bringing your brand across is kind of disappearing. What we have on the screen is clients from Uganda or Sight and Sounds of Africa. very small company, very new, but they're really making great use of videos, but also visual content, differentiated towards in quite a competitive space. Okay, design to inform. Coming back to the whole idea of, it's more than just selling rooms, seats, and that's really about saying, in context of my business or my product, what's around me, why should you stay with me, why should you do books? And there's an example of one of the things we're doing there is a map module that's built into SpringNest. So this is basically will allow clients to come in and build their own destination guidance things, showing what's around them. So the idea was to say, in context of where I'm located, here's what you can do in my area. And quite cool to see what clients did with that. Use it to kind of plot out wine routes and even to kind of plot out animal sightings on reserves, that sort of thing. So, giving them tools to say they can very easily create context in what's the value around their business and booking them. All right. Start reinventing the wheel and be smart about integrations. This may be a bit ironic coming from a guy who built a CMS in this day and age. But I think that's really a value proposition behind SpringNest. The fact that it's so focused on tourism that we can really look at what are the tools that our clients need and what's the best way that we can integrate that. What you're seeing there is just a screenshot of SpringNest, the widget center. And this week was specifically a week where a lot of our clients got notified from TripAdvisor that they had certificates of excellence or they had new badges, and they said, how can we integrate this? So we went and we just thought, we broke this down and said, what is really the best practice for them to be able to do this now, create new widgets and communicate with them. So without them having to go through the whole process, they could implement that on the website quite easily. And the same goes for any additional services they want to use and integrate. Okay, mobile, quite a tricky one also. I want to talk specifically about design on mobile. I think they're willing to ask, what is mobile really? Just also to look at it instead of the past 2 days, it's kind of difficult. So if you have a budget and you want to have a mobile website, what are you going to cater for? What's really considered mobile? Is it phone? Is it tablet? Is it whatever? So different ways to design a mobile, I think, also have their place. Apps, dedicated mobile sites. But one that's really worked well for us is the concept of responsive design, which is basically, as a concept, saying that you've got content and there's a website, but we need to get away from this kind of segmented way of thinking. Because a traveler or clients are not specifically sitting and thinking, now I'm on my desktop, now I'm on a phone, now I'm on a tablet. They're just using the web. So why do we just still design like that? So responsive design is basically saying exactly that. There's a website with content on it, and we just adapt and change the content to fit the device that the client is using. I just got a clock saying 2 minutes. I'm going to run through this. Social media, also quite interesting. How should we package this? How can we say we package this for the tourism trade? Quite a tricky one. We started with Facebook applications that clients could actually install to their Facebook pages. When we looked at where Facebook was going, very kind of mobile, didn't really support that anymore. We relooked this and asked the clients, what are your needs about social? And what came out there was 2 things. They felt that the lifetime of the content they're posting to the social networks was kind of short. They posted stuff and kind of got disappeared. They wanted to residence for it, and also didn't have enough time to publish content. So looking at that, we kind of thought, how do we tackle that? And that really brought us back to blogging. And we created a very simple blogging module for SpringNest. So our clients can log in a few minutes, publish content. And the vision is basically, this is, let's spread this across Africa. So let's get the trade blogging and telling the stories. Okay, very obvious question that then came was, I don't know what to write about. And I think this was also explained quite well over the past 2 days, saying that to really generate good content is to basically identify those niche segments in the market and serve them with relevant content. All right, and this was really a kicker for us, because when we did this, we started seeing some results. And our clients really took this to heart, and they started writing these stories. So what you see there is, I mean, it's quite diverse. We've got people writing destination guides, or writing about conservation, or having guests staying with them to write stories and publishing that. So I think that's where they also really started seeing results in terms of web traffic, and also, you know, posting those stories to social networks. Basically, yeah, put the whole picture together. All right, so that's just an example of what it looks like in Spring Nest on their blog. Very straightforward, very simple. And when they publish it, they have the option to post this to Spring Nest and Facebook directly, saving them time, obviously. All right, so last, just kind of concluding, obviously, it was very clear to us that knowledge and education is a big part of the success of a model like this. Just giving businesses tools are not really enough. You need to make them understand, firstly, why they need it, and also how to use it. And that's something that we started working on over the past year quite a lot. We have a help center for Spring Nest. Clients can come with tutorials saying basically how do I get the most out of this, and also then educational guides on online marketing, teaching how to use certain things, the importance of social networks, etc. Right, in conclusion, obviously something I left out was conversion. All this needs to get back to bringing people or bums into beds or onto seats or whatever the term is. And that's, in March this year, we officially partnered with Knightsbridge and Activity Bridge to basically put this package together and say, once we empower clients to create content and to market the businesses, how do we convert that to sales? And yeah, I think that's where Teresa will take over and talk about Knightsbridge and Activity Bridge. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. We're very excited about the partnership because we think, we look for a long time for a solution like this. We generally at Knightsbridge and Activity Bridge, I think it's a compliment. I was going to say not to insult any of our clients who are on here, but I do think that the people who work with Knightsbridge are generally what the long tail of travel, in the sense that there's many small providers who actually then, together, we probably have all together more beds than Protea hotels, but it's small providers who make that happen, and they need solutions that are tailor-made to them and don't have the budgets that a Protea hotel has and can come along and do. So you've talked the past couple of past 2 days, and Peter's mentioned that things. What? There we go. That we talked about social media and getting out onto the web. But the question I kind of want to put to you is, once you've done all of this, then what is your call to action? I think that's the point Peter ended up on as well. How do you convert? What do you do? What do you need at the end of that? So the point is that any of the things that you do in Facebook, you can plug in, a booking form, and in the same to Google, your landing page, make sure that there's a place that people convert. So people should be able to see availability, see room types that are available, should then be able to book those for the dates that they want to stay, and then choose the type of room that they want, etc. And for instance, on our booking form, also on the last page, they can go and add extras that they want to book. So this is accessible if you've integrated into Facebook, for instance. Your Spring Nest website can also become a page in your Facebook page, which means that anything you're doing on Spring Nest is also updating Facebook. And all of that is linked to your online booking form, because it also has an embedded date widget that you just put the dates in and it just jumps out to the booking form. So what we really like about simple solutions for small and many not so small businesses, because you know, luxury lodge with 7 rooms is certainly not a small business, but they still need clever and adaptable and dynamic solutions. It also needs to be adapted for mobile, and Peter spoke a little bit about this. This is also some of their sites. Now, on mobile specifically, and perhaps you have discussed that, but the big thing is the mobile needs to look quite to a website, because people do different things when they're on mobile. And in my experience, when I'm on my phone, I haven't necessarily booked there, but it's when I'm on my way from the airport to the guest house, and I suddenly go, oops, how do I get there again? And I'm quickly on their website, checking it out. So the 3 main things that you actually want on there when you go to the site. I'm missing the pointer there.
Sorry, we can see it.
Oh, can you see it?
Okay, trust me.
Okay, fine. It's great when the technology companies struggle with the technology. My apologies. Can't press the button. So your mobile form, your booking form, obviously also should change a little bit when it displays on a mobile website, because people are going to have a different size screen and quickly want to do different things there that they might want on their actual main screen. Now, how do you get that information there? And since Knightsbridge and Activity Bridge, I suppose we're also in the middle here between the social and the actual website. But that's what we're doing, is also the bridging technology to get your information onto those websites for conversion. So I always suggest that people start with the end in mind and say, what do you actually want out of a system? Because it's going to be the system that you need to manage on a day-to-day basis, because it's going to control all of your availability. And the worst thing that you can do, especially as a smaller business that is very involved in its own management, is to have to maintain 2 or 3 or 4 systems. You can go and update Expedia, or you can go and update Booking.com without the help of somebody like Knightsbridge, but it does mean that you have to log in and out of several sites several times a day, and especially when you've just updated booking and then they phone back to say, oh, we actually cancelled, or we've changed the dates, and you have to go back in and do it again. So where do you keep all of this together? And think about what you want to do in that place where you keep your bookings. You know, do you need invoicing? Do you need account information? Do you need arrivals reports? Are you going to use those? And then get a system that matches the output that you're looking for. So that's a great place to start. Also look for something that will be mobile and adaptable and can be carried with you and can be accessed from some other places if lightning strikes your computer or somebody comes and carries it off in the middle of the night. So, it's very nice to then have a place where you can log in online at the neighbor's computer or at the nearest coffee shop and still see all of your bookings, still see all of your arrivals. So that's very useful. And that is something that Knightsbridge provides. But we also work with many other front-end systems, and out of those front-end systems, we actually just pull the availability. The idea is then basically that any bookings that you take go into your property management system or your front-end system, and those then go and update all of your channels for you. When your guest books with one of those channels, we get the booking and we push it back into your availability system. So the whole point is a bridge, building a bridge between your availability and all of the sites that you want to distribute to. We've done the same thing for day trips, tours, activities, and they have the same needs in the sense that you want on there to be able to convert. So people should be able to check availability and then see what type of tours and activities you have available, and then go ahead and book those with a booking form that actually gives them all the information they need, including what to bring, what to wear, when it starts, what the itinerary, what the actual day looks like, and obviously with lots of room for gallery photos and especially videos, because that is what generally sells your activities. What we've done then is put the two together. So we have 3,700 guest houses who are users of our system, and we're learning more and more activities. So we have about 60 providers in there at the moment, and many of them have several different activities. So what we're trying to do is say, when somebody walks into a guest house, that guest house generally becomes the person with the most local knowledge. They go, you're the local, why don't you tell me where I can go? What do you recommend? And not just restaurants, but also things to do, shark cage dives and so on, whale watching, the Segway and Spear, and we're at the moment trying to find out from all of you also what are the things that people like doing, and how can we pull it into this network where we can promote it by also making all of the guest houses aware of those activities. So there again, we're trying to act as a bridge between the activity providers and the guest houses and so on, so that people can actually know where to go and what to do. And in the guest house system, they can log in and see the available activities. They can book on behalf of their guests, and they can actually earn commission on that. And then they can also actually book other accommodation. And we're in the process of also making that facility available for the activity providers in the other direction. Sally Broom also mentioned yesterday that one of the things to do is to also let your guests know what activities they can can do when they come and visit you and actually stay. So one of the things we've automated, and hopefully, and I think will personalize even more at the moment, we do use the person's name and says, hi John, you're going to be coming to Stellenbosch, we really look forward to welcome you. Here are some ideas of things you can do when you get here. What's nice about that for a guest house or an accommodation place is that if people find something that they want to do, they might actually extend their stay. Cape Point Route a while back had a wonderful slogan that they said, more than a one-night stand. And I'm sure all accommodation places would actually like to do that. So this is a way of, and it's a way of making that possible, getting the word out there of what is available, and creating that point of interest. So why should you be on all of these different search engines and platforms like Expedia that Amanda's going to talk about in a minute? The issue is that people jump around incredibly when they search. They might start in Google and look for Durban accommodation. That might direct them to Booking.com, where they will read and look at the reviews. But most often after that, people also then end up on TripAdvisor to go and read about the properties that they've seen on the extranet. And then there is an opportunity, obviously, also for them now to look at available accommodation, and you can see how all these different organizations work together, because on TripAdvisor then there are references both to Booking.com and to Expedia and Hotels.com, where people can, from TripAdvisor, connect and get into the booking site on the other sites. Obviously, one of the things that TripAdvisor is also now offering is that you can book into your own website, and that's one of the integrations that Knightsbridge has done. So with our clients, if somebody clicks on that official site, it actually opens also their Knightsbridge booking form to go and complete that cycle. So the kinds of places that you can connect with, the channels that are out there are international channels, local travel channels, tourism organizations, loads of tour operators and travel agents, the GDS, and obviously activity bridge channels like Dirty Boots, and those are the bridges that we continually try to build. So all in all, there's a whole package of services, including automated review collection for TripAdvisor, that it, in the end, makes it worthwhile and connects you and forms the bridges, as I said, between your availability, activity providers, other people in your area for, in essence, cooperation and co-opetition, which is actually how the tourism industry works.
Hello. Okay. So I am going to get started with a quick recap on our distribution. So what do we do with all of the inventory that we get from the likes of Knightsbridge, SiteMinder, directly from hotels? No Expedia presentation would be complete without some numbers, so we'll go through some figures. and then what we are doing from our side to inspire people to travel and also to bring more people to our sites to book specifically for Africa and for South Africa. So anyone that's been to an Expedia presentation before probably has seen this slide. I won't spend too much time here, but this shows a map of all of the countries where we have at least one point of sale and we sell to people in those countries. Along the bottom, you'll see all of the brands that are included in the Expedia Inc. family. And these are represented on the map, all of them except for the Expedia affiliate network. All of the others are brands of ours that we run and operate the sites, but the affiliate network is where it's over 8,000 sites that are not our sites, but that we provide rates and inventory to as well. So those aren't represented on this map, but for our own sites, it's 150 different travel sites in over 70 different countries. That in itself hasn't changed too much in the past year, but we have seen some changes through the affiliate section. So South African Airways, for example, is a big partner of ours. They have been for many years. You go and book a hotel on South African Airways website, it does come from our rates and availability. So that's not new, but what's new is that as of June this year, they have switched from our Expedia platform to our Hotels.com platform, and the benefit to that is that people now can transact in Rand when booking that accommodation. So it's only been a few months, but the pickup that we've seen from that has been really terrific. And the other big change that's happened for us this year is with Travelocity. So Travelocity, up until this year, has been a very big competitor of ours in the US. And I can now look at this roaming gnome and not see a competitor because they're one of our partners now as well. So for their US and their Canadian sites, we're sourcing the rates, availability, and content as well as customer service for their sites. So taking a look at some production figures, overall we're having a really great year into Africa. Our growth is about 30% over the year prior. We did have a very strong 2013 as well. So I've included the top 15 destinations here and their growth so far for 2014. The top destinations touch every point of the continent, which is great, and we're growing in all of them. But what I think is really key is that in a market such as South Africa, which is one of the most mature markets within Africa, we're outpacing the growth. So we're actually growing 35% here into South Africa, which is phenomenal. Now, if we take a look at where those customers are coming from, I mean, the majority of our business into South Africa is definitely international. I've included some key highlights here, some emerging markets and some key source markets. We'll look at Europe on the next slide. And there's growth everywhere. Growth into Africa, and you can see in the blue, and then specifically to South Africa. And I think the great thing here, again, is you can see South Africa is doing a really great job because their pace is outpacing the rest of the continent as well. So if we look at the US, for example, the US is our biggest country of origin into Africa. We're going by 45%, which is excellent, but into South Africa, 60%. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing in the US, in Canada, in that part of the world to drive some more traffic and attention to Africa. If we take a look at Europe, growth across the board as well. But the three that I want to call out here is the UK and Germany, because both obviously very strong markets, really good coming through. And in both situations, my eye on, from a South Africa perspective, and definitely with a Cape Town perspective, is Sweden. So last year, Sweden grew 80% for us. It had a phenomenal year last year, and actually moved into our top 5 countries of origin. And we're continuing to grow by another 40% this year. So I think that's a definitely up-and-coming source market into South Africa that I'm really focusing on. And of course, we need to talk a little bit about mobile. So the top graph here, I think we've covered quite a bit, but it's the top graph showing the share of online bookings that are made through mobile. So in the US last year, 10% of all online bookings, that's expected to be almost triple by next year, where 1 in 4 bookings will come through mobile devices. And then Europe and APAC also looking to double to about 20%. Now, I mentioned a lot of our business is not regional or local business, but we're still seeing really strong growth in mobile as well. So in 2012, it was only about 4% of our business coming through mobile, and this year it's already about 11%. So even for long-haul destinations, people are still booking, long trips that they're booking at least 60 days in advance through mobile. It's not all just last-minute bookings, although that is a big trend overall. So with that, I'm going to move on to some of the exciting things that we've been doing on our side. So the first campaign, I've got 4 that I want to try and talk about. The first one is called the Modern Explorer. And it was run in the UK, Germany, France, and Italy in June and July. And it gave 4 very lucky people a trip of a lifetime. One person from each of these countries was selected to take a trip following in the steps of Vasco da Gama from Portugal to India via the Cape of Good Hope. So we partnered with MSN Travel here, and there was a site on our sites in these countries as well as MSN, promoting all of the destinations that these explorers would stop in. And along the way, they also blogged about their trips, talked about what they did when they were there, where they stayed. It was also supported on social media channels. There was also an interactive element where you could go on and see how your travel experience stacks up against the greats such as Vasco da Gama. So it was a really interactive campaign, which brought a lot of exposure to Africa because of the routing. So that was one initiative this year, which was really great for us. And then Travel Yourself.
Based on the idea that travel will make even the most boring people interesting. Where do you find the most boring people in the world? Twitter. To promote Expedia's new mobile app, we decided to show these dull feeders the power of travel by traveling their tweets interesting. We started to search for the dullest tweets in the UK in real time. When we found one, we traveled it interesting by sending it to a far-flung destination, where a production team was standing by. Then we added a little local flavor and filmed the results before tweeting the film back to the original offender, all within 30 minutes. As we found boring tweets, we traveled them all over the world and sent them back more interesting. To Times Square in New York. To a nudist park in Berlin. To the Middle East. And to a Parisian street. Every film prompted viewers to download the app. People responded instantly, and more Twitter users started to use the PYI hashtag to tag their own dull tweets. We monitored their tweets so we could respond to them as they happened. Over the promotional period, our video responses were viewed for more than 5,000 hours. Our followers increased by 40%. 99% of tweets mentioning the campaign were positive, and most importantly, downloads of Expedia's app increased by 25%.
So this has been a real change to our marketing efforts in the past, if we look a couple of years before, because everything is going much more interactive, trying to get followers and our fans of ours engaged. And so this was a great campaign because it wound up, whenever anyone tweeted to this, it was, okay, what is Expedia going to do with my tweet? Where are they going to send it? And they responded with some with videos, like you saw. There were others that they were pictures. They also actually, for some people that were in London, they delivered a cake to that person's office with the tweet at the top of the cake. So of course everyone was then like, well, how cool is this that Expedia is now responding to my stupid tweet? And there was a competition that went along with it for the most boring tweet. And that person, which the tweet was, I just clipped my toenails, won a trip to Abu Dhabi for 7 nights. So just for sending that tweet. So they got more of a life then. So a really good campaign. That actually won us an award. The next one that I want to talk about is one that Spencer spoke about yesterday, or some of the things that he's spoken about. We worked with him and the rest of the team in the US on, was an Africa sale which we ran in March to April of this year. And we specifically ran it over that time period because we wanted to target travel during low season in South Africa. So we promoted travel throughout Africa, but we really wanted to focus on, okay, how can we help drive more people to Africa during winter, or to South Africa during winter. So with the help of our team, we set up landing pages for the sale on our US and Canadian sites. There was Facebook support on both of those. Spencer ran an Africa-themed Twitter chat to get people talking about Africa, which we'll look at. There was a blog that he did on the Viewfinder blog. And we also, with the help of South African Airways and several hotels throughout South Africa, gave away a trip for 2 people to South Africa. So this is what the landing page looked like. I'm not going to really be able to talk about Find Your campaign, but going along with that campaign, the tagline that they used here is Find Your Heartbeat, which I think is terrific. It goes perfectly with Africa. All of the properties that participated were listed here, and all of the traffic pointed to this site. This is a copy of the blog that Spencer wrote, talking about his previous trip to South Africa, how you too can win a trip through this competition. And now we'll go to the Twitter chat. So the first question was, what books, movies, TV shows come to mind when you think of Africa? And there were some great answers here. And then there were some confused people. So I kid you not, 2 separate people actually answered Cool Runnings. So geography was not their strong point. But most of the people were really, it was a good mix between people who hadn't been to Africa but were really intrigued to learn about it, or people who had been and wanted to share their experience. And I think this is one of the great ways that Expedia is helping to get more consumer-generated content. Now you've got the example here in the bottom right, where this person wants to share his picture from when he was trying the pawnee worms in Zimbabwe. So everyone was getting really excited and sharing this. Just one example. The other thing is because since South African Airways was included in the campaign, they knew about it and they made sure that they were online to also be a destination expert within the chat, which I think was really great to get more information about things to be done in Africa and in South Africa. Overall, we had about almost 700 people contributing to the chat during that 90 minutes, just shy of 4,000 tweets during that time, and reached over 1.3 million unique Twitter users, with overall impressions of about 23.5 million. So as far as the giveaway is concerned, as I mentioned, South African Airways offered 2 round-trip tickets from the US to Cape Town, and we worked with some of the best accommodation providers within South Africa to offer a trip of a lifetime. And the only thing that anyone had to do to enter was follow Expedia on Twitter and post using hashtag Storybook to talk about what their dream trip to Africa would entail. It worked so well that we have been able to set up another campaign, this time going bigger and better. And we're looking at, it's actually live now, it launched on Tuesday. It's focusing on Africa, Middle East, and India. And there's going to be another Twitter chat for October 1st, so perhaps write that down on the calendar there. There's going to be Facebook support, and we're giving away 3 trips now with the help of Etihad, and 1 will be to South Africa as well. Sorry. Okay, so the next and last campaign that I want to talk about is one that they've done with Instagram, which is a pretty new platform for us that we've really started to kind of tap into. But I think they did a really great job in taking something like Throwback Thursday, which most people just post about on a personal level, and turning that into a business marketing campaign. I'll share what they've done here.
We live in Washington up north. It's very different from Ocean Beach. I posted this photo, and that's me right there in the middle of the baby. My brother's right next to me. My Uncle John is behind me, the football. My dad's trying to put my hat back on. Are you excited? Yeah. I think it's a great idea that Expedia is throwing people back to reunite with people in places that you've been to before but haven't visited in a while.
It's going to look like this. So I'm going to be John. You're going to be right here.
I'm a bigger body than that.
Yeah. And you're going to be looking more towards there.
Awesome. Nice. I mean, that's just like childhood right there.
Yeah. For a chance to be thrown back to your TBT, post a photo with hashtag #ThrowMeBack. You could be on your way.
So over the past few months during summer in the US, they've been asking everyone to post their throwback pictures. And every week they pick a winner, and that person is then thrown back to whatever memory that was. So again, just a really cool, different way to be able to get people using Throwback Thursday for Expedia, or including it into Expedia. So what's next? We have quite a few things coming up as well. There's going to be a campaign launched, I believe, next week, South Africa Tourism on our Germany site. There will be a giveaway included there for a trip to South Africa as well. As part of the current Africa, Middle East, India sale, there was that Twitter chat, as I mentioned, on October 1st. There's also a campaign that our U.S. team is doing to feature some of the best wine valleys around the world, and of course we have one right here. So Stellenbosch will be included as well. As I mentioned, I didn't get a chance to talk about the Find Your campaign, but if you haven't seen it, I do suggest maybe going to YouTube and just searching Expedia Find Yours. They've put together a lot of videos. It really talks to the inspirational side of travel and everything that you can get out of travel. And we've been told that the next Find Yours video is going to be filmed here in South Africa, which we're really excited about. And some of these videos have easily gotten a few million views, so it'll be great exposure for the destination. And then the last one is a project that our Germany point of sale has been doing, where it's a 1 day in 1 minute video of top cities around the world. And they had hired a videographer in Cape Town who filmed all around Cape Town. I've been bugging them. I really wanted to be able to show it to you today, but unfortunately they're still in the editing process. But to give you an idea of what that will look like, I'm just going to show you what the Sydney film looked like. I'm really excited to see what Cape Town looks like. Like I said, they filmed pretty much everywhere throughout Cape Town. It should be done within the next month. And as you can see, since it's just music and visuals, there's no language tied to it. So even though it's being done for our German point of sale, we should be able to then use it to promote the destination throughout the world as well. So really looking forward to that. And with that, I think I did go over, but apologize.
Hello? Yes, that's good. We've got time for 1 or 2 quick questions if anyone has any immediate questions for any of these 3 guys. No? Okay, the question, can we have coffee please? The answer is yes. So folks, I know it's been a long 2 days, we're almost there. And we've got coffee served outside. If you want to grab your coffee and bring it back in, so that we're back in here well before 4 o'clock, but then we're going to go into our final session, which is going to be my social media toolbox seminar. I'm going to run through my summary in seminar form of things that you should be taking away from these 2 days and important tools and techniques to have in your business before we wrap up and get you home by 5. So thank you very much. If you want to grab your coffee and come back in, that would be fantastic.